Because I'd written like 3 sentences in Evil, so that Making Evil is my second book. And there I was talking about the othering of people who are part of sexual minority communities, and specifically at the othering of people who are engaged in homosexual activity, and how in many parts around the world, in many countries, that is still an act that can land you in prison, an act that can be punishable by various kinds of legal punishments. And so I was writing about this in Evil, and in how a lot of people see those who are part of the LGBTQIA+ community as evil, as lesser, as different, as wrong, as broken, as all of these words that we associate with that term. And I also had this moment where I said, well, we know one of the ways to break down this categorization of people into good versus evil is for people to meet people from that community and to like and know people from that community. And in order to see people from those communities, though, you need to know that that's the community they are a part of. And so me, if I don't say I'm bisexual, people don't know I'm bi. My mom, my friends, my colleagues don't know I'm bi unless I say it out loud, partly because, much like with asexuality, I'm sure, this is where lots of our stuff overlaps, it can be difficult to be visible, because it's not within the way that we've constructed sort of romance, the way that we've constructed relationships. And unless you're holding, in my case, two genders or multiple genders' hands at the same time, saying, this is my girlfriend, this is my boyfriend, this is my non-binary, like, people don't see it. And with you, again, it's like, oh, you're probably just single, so.
Yeah, you can be kind of conspicuous about it if you need to.
If you need to, right, but you have to like tell people or be conspicuous. It's not just gonna be visible inherently necessarily. And so I was telling people in this small piece that we need to work on this visibility, and that can make it the world a slightly better place. To, if you know that your son, your daughter, your mom, your best friend is part of the LGBTQIA+ community, it's much harder to say, I hate these people.
We are seeing more depictions of relationships that aren't heteronormative in popular culture, in TV, in film, in theatre, in literature, but I don't see us seeing asexuality represented really to any great extent. And it seems like this theme of romantic love is seen as so necessary for storytelling, for creating a narrative, particularly in genres like film and theatre. How do you think that these depictions or lack of depictions of relationships and different sexualities, specifically people who are ace, inhibit or enhance our understanding, or are they just a reflection of a wider problem, or is it chicken and egg?
Yeah, I feel like it's because on one hand, I feel like it's almost kind of not just the lack of representation of certain things, but more just kind of the over-reliance on one particular narrative all the time. Like sometimes people say like, oh, well, what kind of media do you consume if you don't want to watch something that's all about this? It's like, I don't know, like a documentary about animals, something like, I don't know, like there's lots of things that you can watch and consume, like there's books I read and stuff that really aren't romance or sex related. Like it's possible to find those things, but when it kind of comes to most of the stuff that's pushed to us, it is especially narratives that are aimed at women in particular, like it is just perpetuating this idea that, you are like an incomplete person until somebody loves you and you love them back, and then that relationship can happen. And especially for women, it tends to be like, she's got a great career, she's got great friends, she's beautiful, she's got everything going on, but she's single. So has she really achieved anything? Will she ever be happy? And well, I think that's pretty harmful to everybody, but then that's why it's so easy for people to have these kind of stereotypes about people that are asexual and aromantic, because it's like they've also internalized this idea that they think they would be incomplete and wrong if they weren't living like this. Therefore, you really must be, and you must really need to change your ways, because this is kind of the overarching, the term we use for it is a macho-normative narrative that we've all kind of consumed for a long time. And even though we are kind of getting a little better with asexual representation, still usually, like if I could think of 2 examples, there was a character that was in Sex Education's last season for about 2 minutes. You gotta look really close. She had red hair and she was in like one scene. And then there was another character in Legends of Tomorrow, which I don't know if that's been canceled or not. But they both had very brief kind of like coming out moments, and every time they said I'm asexual, it's very quickly followed with, but don't worry, I still date, don't worry. Like, I'm not one of those ones. Like, I still fall in love. Like, oh, I'm not a weirdo. Like, it's always kind of followed by that as like a clarifier, as if like, I'm unusual. I'm not taking it there. Like, I still want that, of course. So I think that even then it's like we'll incorporate it, but sort of as a sort of, I don't know, like a hurdle that needs to be overcome. Like that can kind of be incorporated into sort of how do you navigate this as an asexual person if you're dating. Like even for me, so much of the requests I get of people just wanting to know how hard it is for me to date. And the second I say, actually, I don't date and I'm quite happy with that, they're like, oh, sorry. They kind of wanted to hear about the struggle. Like that's kind of, that's like, but I'm actually quite happy. I could talk to you about, no, we don't want to hear about people being happily single. So yeah, it's definitely an over-reliance on that.
What impact do you think that lack of visibility, historic, but also, what we're still having today, has had on how we can view it and how we can experience it today?
Well, one of the things that is sort of an evergreen way of looking at bisexuality is that it's new. It's something kids these days are doing. It's something that the younger generation, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever, is currently doing. And well, of course, on television, it's always the young kids, the kids in university or the kids at school, high schools, who are allowed, quote unquote, to experiment with the sexuality. And while we are seeing more also genuine representation on TV when it comes to LGBTQIA plus characters, also bi specifically, there's a huge problem with that, which is just that it's wrong. It's obviously not new. Bisexuality, even as an identity, isn't that new. And since at least the 1970s, cover stories have been telling us just how new it is, which is hilarious because that's our parents' generation, which already was like, it's new, it just keeps being called this. And what it does is it has the ability to untether us from our own history. What it's doing, when someone says this is new, this is a fad, this is a trend, is they're both calling it transient, they're calling it not real, and they're saying don't go looking for your history because there isn't any. What does that do? It disempowers you. Because the way you are empowered, the way that you understand how people have fought for people like you before, and who is fighting for your corner, who historically has been there, and what laws they've had to stand for, what organizations they've joined, and how they've mobilized, if you don't know that, you're going to be less equipped to fight now. And so for me, I felt completely untethered from my history. I didn't know any bi characters in history.